from Karnataka, in the year 1167, Basva performed an act that would prove fatal to his career and almost to his life. In the year 1134, in a small Brahman village called Bhagyawadi, in present-day northern Karnataka, a son was born to a Brahman priestly family. The father was named Madiraja. The mother was named Madlambika. They named their son Basva, a contraction of Basveshwara, after Shiva. He grew up, in his Brahman household, on the same diet of Sanskrit Vedas and household ritual that every Brahman boy of the time received. He was, however, an unusual child. He asked uncomfortable questions. He noticed, even as a child, that the rituals he was being taught were elaborate, expensive, and somehow distant from anything resembling actual love of God. When he was 8 years old, his family began the preparations for his Upnayana, the formal sacred thread ceremony that admits a Brahman boy into full Brahman status. Basva refused. He told his father he did not want the sacred thread. He told his father he saw no spiritual meaning in it. He said he did not understand why a piece of cotton string, draped over his shoulder, would make him closer to Shiva than he already was. His father was, predictably, outraged. The Brahman council of Bhagyawadi was summoned. They debated. Basva, 8 years old, debated back. He left, by himself, the night before the ceremony. He walked out of his Brahman village. He walked east. He walked, ultimately, to a small Shaivite monastery at Kudlasangama, the place where the rivers Krishna and Malaprabha meet. At Kudlasangama, Basva was taken in by a great Shaivite teacher named Jatvedamuni. Basva lived at the small monastery for the next 12 years, from age 8 to age 20. He learned Sanskrit. He learned the Shaiva Agamas. He learned, however, primarily one idea, that there is no caste in the eyes of Shiva. That a Brahman who is cruel is lower than a Chandala who is kind. That ritual without conviction is theatre. That love of God expresses itself through how one treats other human beings. Basva emerged from Kudlasangama at the age of 20 as a young man with very clear convictions. He believed in one God, Shiva. He believed in equality between castes, between genders, between professions. He believed in personal labor, that every person, regardless of caste, should support themselves through honest work. He believed in straightforward speech, no Sanskrit incantations, no priestly intermediaries. He had also, at Kudlasangama, begun to compose. He had begun to write, in his native Kannada, a new kind of devotional poem. He called these new poems Vachanas, Kannada for sayings. Short, prose-like, conversational. Not in any traditional Sanskrit verse meter. Not even in any Kannada verse meter. Simply, the way one would speak in a conversation, addressed directly to Shiva. They were, in Kannada literature, a complete and radical innovation. Basva was eventually summoned, in the early 1160s, to the court of King Bijla II of the Kalchuri dynasty, which had recently overthrown the older Chalukya kings and which ruled from the capital city of Kalyan, today the town of Basva Kalyan in northern Karnataka. Basva was appointed, on the recommendation of his uncle, as the chief minister and treasurer of the Kalyan court. He was 28 years old. He took the appointment. He moved to Kalyan. He proved, against expectations, to be an extraordinarily competent treasurer. The kingdom's revenues grew. The treasury was well managed. The king was pleased. But Basva, in his personal capacity, was running, alongside his official duties, an entirely different operation. He had begun, in his own residence in Kalyan, to hold an open spiritual gathering, open to people of every caste, every profession, every gender. The gathering was called the Anubhava Mantapa, the Hall of Experience. Cobblers came. Washerwomen came. Boatmen came. Brahmins came. Outcast sweepers came. A young leatherworker named Harilya came. A young Brahman scholar named Madhuvaya came. Each was given equal status. Each was invited to compose their own Vachana, in their own Kannada, and to share it at the gathering. The Anubhava Mantapa, in the 1160s of Karnataka, was something never before seen in India, a religious congregation where caste was abolished, where women composed and spoke alongside men, where leather workers debated theology with Brahmins on equal terms. The Vachanas that came out of the Anubhava Mantapa, over a period of about 25 years, are one of the great bodies of medieval Indian literature. They were composed by men and women, by Brahmins and untouchables, by craftsmen and scholars, by widows and prostitutes, by potters and prostitutes, by kings and beggars. There were around 300 poets who contributed. They are collectively called the Sharnas, the surrendered ones, those who had surrendered to Shiva. Basva's own Vachanas are the most famous. They are short, blunt, urgent, often furious. He attacked Brahman priests, ritual sacrifice, caste discrimination, and economic exploitation in equal measure. One of his most famous Vachanas, Kalabeda Kolabeda, Husyanudabeda, Munyabeda, Anyarige Asahyabdabeda, Tanabanizabeda, Idarabanizabeda, do not steal, do not kill, do not lie, do not be angry, do not look at others with envy, do not praise yourself, do not slander others. The Lingayat tradition treats these 7 simple ethical precepts as the foundation of Basva's entire teaching. He produced, in total, around 1400 surviving Vachanas in his lifetime. The other Sharnas, including the remarkable female Sharna Akka Mahadevi, produced many thousands more. In the year 1167, Basva performed an act that would prove fatal to his career and almost to his life. 2 of his closest disciples, the Brahman scholar Madhuvaya and the leather worker Harilya, had become close friends across caste lines through their participation in the Anubhava Mantapa. Madhuvaya's son had grown up. Harilya's daughter had grown up. The 2 families, defying all Kannada custom and Hindu law, decided to marry the boy and the girl. The wedding was held publicly in Kalyan. Basva attended and blessed the wedding. The conservative Brahman lobby of Kalyan was scandalized. They petitioned King Bijla too. They demanded punishment of the 2 families. They demanded the dissolution of the Anubhava Mantapa. They demanded the removal of Basva from office. King Bijla too, who had until then tolerated Basva's social experiments, now caved to the conservative pressure. He ordered the 2 fathers, Madhuvaya and Harilya, arrested. He ordered them executed by being tied to elephants and dragged through the streets. The execution took place. It was, by all accounts, brutal. Basva was helpless to stop it. Basva, in the aftermath of the execution, resigned his position as treasurer. He left Kalyan. He returned to Kudlasangama, the small monastery at the river junction where, as a boy, he had first arrived. The Anubhava Mantapa dispersed. The Sharnas, the 300 poets of every caste, scattered across South India, carrying their Vachanas with them. The Lingayat movement, in this period of dispersion, paradoxically spread further than it ever had, to Kannada villages, to Telugu villages, to Maharashtrian villages, as the fleeing Sharnas brought their teachings to every place they reached. Basva himself died at Kudlasangama in 1167 or 1168, less than a year after the execution of his disciples' fathers. He was 33 or 34 years old. The Lingayat tradition holds that he merged with the Linga at Kudlasangama, where the two rivers meet. The Brahman establishment of Kalyan, having killed 2 men and driven a great reformer to an early grave, congratulated itself on having defended caste. King Bijla too was assassinated by an unrelated palace coup a few years later. The movement that Basva began did not die. It became, in the centuries after his death, a distinct religion within Hinduism, known today as Lingayatism or Virashaivism. Its followers wear a small lingam in a silver casket around their neck, the Ishtlinga, the personal Shiva, as a sign that every person, regardless of caste or gender, has direct access to Shiva. The Lingayats reject Brahman priests. They do not perform Vedic rituals. They do not believe in caste. They cremate their dead, but in the seated meditation posture, not the supine posture of orthodox Hindus, signaling that the dead are not really dead but have merged with Shiva. They have, today, an estimated population of 40 to 60 million people, almost all in present-day Karnataka, where they constitute approximately 1/5 of the state's population. The Lingayat community has produced some of the most important Karnataka leaders of the modern period, including the Kannada novelist Kuvempu, Gyanpith Award winner, the chief ministers of Karnataka, and major industrialists. The community continues to debate, sometimes loudly, whether it is a distinct religion or a denomination within Hinduism. The community continues to recite, every morning, the 7 ethical precepts of Basva. In Karnataka today, no Lingayat, and almost no Kannadiga of any background, calls him simply Basva. He is, universally, Basavanna, the suffix Sana meaning elder brother in Kannada. He is, in the Kannada-speaking world, the great elder brother. There is a giant statue of him in the heart of Bangalore. There is a square named after him in every major Karnataka town. There is a major railway station, Basva Kalyan, at the site of the old capital where the Anubhava Mantapa once met. His 7 precepts are taught to every Kannada medium school child as a kind of secular ethical curriculum, regardless of the child's caste or religion. And his vachanas, those short, blunt, conversational Kannada poems from the 12th century, are still the most quoted lines in modern Kannada literature. The Brahman boy who, at the age of 8, walked out of his own sacred thread ceremony, and who in 25 years of work tried to abolish caste in 12th century India, did not succeed in his own lifetime. He has, in the 850 years since, succeeded considerably more. Tomorrow's story comes from another corner of India. Subscribe to walk with us through the folklore of every region, in your language.